Already.
Can line of commercials. I was like, no. 4 seconds.
Hey, everybody tuning in. If you're watching, let us know you're out there. Hey, Sacramento. How is everyone? It is Wednesday. You are listening to 97.5 FM KDEE. I am Agent Key, and we are Selling Sacramento. And on today's show, I am always excited. I have Mr. Ben Vandermeer with the Sacramento Business Journal, and we are talking about Sacramento booming. Ben is going to do a majority of the talking because it is Ben's specialty to know everything about everything that is being constructed in and around Sacramento, including Roseville, including Rockland, wherever. If it is connected to Sacramento, Ben is the man. And so, Ben, thank you for being on the show today, sir. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So tell everyone listening how you got to be where you are in the position that you're in, doing what it is that you do.
Okay. Well, I've been a journalist for just a little over 23 years now. Didn't think I would be doing it this long, but I am. In 2013, I got the job with the Sacramento Business Journal, and what they've got me doing is writing about real estate and development. Primarily, which has to do with everything that she was just discussing there. That's who's building, what's being built, where it's being built, why it's being built, the deals that go into that, whether it's for the land or the buildings or the process of getting through entitlements, getting through CEQA, all those kinds of things. That's what I'm focused on day in, day out in my job. And I've been doing it now for a little more than 8 years, and it keeps being interesting, keeps me busy.
So tell us off the start, off the bat, what's the biggest project right now happening in Sacramento that we may or may not be aware of?
I think one that really will pop up on the radar here very soon, it's not yet underway, but it's going to be starting in the next 9 months from the sounds of it, is a project that's been around for a while called Placer Ranch. Placer Ranch is in Placer County outside. It's sort of between Roseville and Lincoln. Mm-hmm. But what's happened lately is that a local developer has basically bought into the project. It has been proposed going back, I think, almost 20 years and just didn't move forward for a lot of reasons. A new developer has come on board, bought the project, bought the entitlements, and said they want to get underway. What makes Placer Ranch interesting is a couple factors, and let me just make sure I have my facts here right. But first off is that it's got quite a bit of housing with it. It's 2,200 acres, so you're talking a sizable. Wow. They've got entitlements for 5,600 homes in that. That's single family, apartments, lots of other things. They've got 5 million square feet of what would be commercial space, so that's stores, restaurants, possibly some office space. But the real thing that makes that project especially interesting is that at the center of it is a planned extension campus for Sacramento State University.
Oh, wow.
Sacramento State would have what they call the Placer Center up there for students, and Sierra College would actually also have a presence up there as kind of a transfer to help its students transfer over into Sac State when they get done. That would be the centerpiece of the project. Sac State has the land. They're on board with it. Now you have a developer on board with it who say they want to start work on the infrastructure and what they say would be the first 600 homes in the project next spring.
So which came first, the extension of the Sac State University or the housing? I'm assuming the university came first, but
they've been talking about both pretty much from the start of the project, but I'm thinking you'll probably see the houses first. Something like a new university center takes a lot of planning, takes a lot of money, and right now it is still a little uncertain exactly how soon they'll get off the ground. But they say they're committed to it. They say they think they'll have something there within a few years. So you'll see that project come up both with the housing side, but then with the university side as well.
So that kind of makes me think of what we called in Elk Grove, the Ghost Mall area that is now going to be, of course, the casino.
Right.
So I believe that there's been talk about the casino. There actually was infrastructure. It was partially built for a while.
Mm-hmm.
There was the casino and the outdoor mall.
Mm-hmm.
But the housing started sprouting up around it also as a result. And it stopped for a moment, but now it's back up again. We still don't have the mall. We still don't have the casino, but it's been revamped and rebooted. And I guess they're going to start building. Well, they've actually now started on the construction of the casino. So it kind of reminds me of that project.
Yeah, the casino itself was kind of something that came along more as a new concept. The mall concept went all the way back to the big housing boom in the mid-2000s was where that came from. And unfortunately, as you say, they made a little bit of progress, but then the economy turned. They just never made any more progress. And actually, the entitlements to build a mall there have expired, and the company that owned the site through all that has sold it all off to the casino. So I don't think you're going to see a quote unquote mall there, but you are going to see the casino. And I also would suspect that over time, the folks that own the casino and the tribe that's affiliated with it are going to develop the area with a lot of things that would go along with the casino. If you've been to Las Vegas, you see just as many stores as you do slot machines and tables. Right. And I suspect over time we'll see something like that here. There will be some retail developed, probably some nice kind of upscale retail, probably some everyday retail too. You got to have places to eat, places to grab something quick, gas stations, hotels, all that sort of thing will come up around it. But as you say, the housing tends to kind of come first, because A, there's almost always, as we know in California, a market for housing, and B, a lot of times that's the less complicated project to pursue, frankly.
Right, yeah. So just in the discussions before the housing comes up, though, like you said, the bigger projects are penciled out on paper first. The casino, the university. Right. And then it's, okay, now we know what to build around it. So the thought, the idea, then the thought, take the vision, make it plain, write it down, that kind of thing. But the faster of the two to construct, of course, is the housing before the services.
And a lot of times when you'll kind of come up with a project like that, a lot of times something like a university, a jobs center, something like a casino, that'll actually be kind of sold as, hey, this is what it's going to kind of center around. And that actually a lot of times will help convince a city that this, or a county as far as that goes, that this is a good project to sign off on, because it really brings something different and unique. But the other side of that is that part of it is probably going to take a lot longer to develop for the reasons I've mentioned. In the meantime, you will probably get a lot of houses.
Yeah. Now, how long has it taken? Are you aware of how long that the casino project has been coming?
I want to say that goes back now about 5 or 6 years. That kind of emerged only, I would say, about that long ago, when the tribe that is behind it started scoping around looking for some land that what they have to do is take it into trust at the discretion of the federal government, and then do what they will on it. It's a little bit different process than a typical development where you buy some land, you go to the local government, you get the approvals, and then you build. Right. An Indian casino actually has to go through the federal government. The tribe has to be recognized. In this case, they were recognized about 10 years ago as a officially designated tribe. Then you have to find some land. Then you have to go through a process with the government to take it into trust under the ownership technically of the tribe, and then you set about building it. It's a little different because you don't have to go through the typical process of CEQA. You may have to go through a federal process that requires something similar, but it's not nearly usually as
complicated and lengthy.
Complicated, yeah. But you'll still get people who will oppose it, or people who will raise questions about it.
Right, which they did.
To be a little more linear, which they did. They sued over it, and I think all the lawsuits with it were resolved basically with in favor of the tribe. It was basically said, look, this is something they essentially have a right to do.
And now with the housing issue, now I'm thinking about Delta Shores and the housing that was planned or is planned for Delta Shores. Is that the same housing that was planned before the crash?
Yes, the project Delta Shores itself, which, as you mentioned, that one goes back quite a ways too, was, I believe, the master plan for that was approved around 2007, 2008. So it goes back quite a ways. Obviously, it didn't move forward very fast because, among other things, there just wasn't a very strong housing market for a few years there after the crash. The other major issue, though, with that project, and people forget about that, is that it wasn't really easy to access it until they built a whole interchange from Interstate 5. Once they built the interchange, that allowed them to actually kind of go in reverse. They kicked it off by building the big retail center that's along I-5 there. And now we're starting to hear about a group, Signature Homes, out of the Bay Area that's bought, I think, the first 120 or so lots. And they would like to build more to eventually be the master builder for that project. So we may be on the verge of really seeing Delta Shores turn the corner from an idea to actually starting to resemble something real.
Now, I often get questions as far as when can we expect to see the housing over there start? Did Signature Homes indicate when they plan to start building?
I'd have to go back and look, but when they had applied with the city, they sounded very interested in starting sooner rather than later. I haven't been out that way in a while to know if they've started. What, of course, would have to do first is infrastructure work, put in the sewer, the roads, the water, all those things you got to have before you can build a single house. But once that part's done, they can usually move pretty quick to the houses themselves. If they haven't already started on that infrastructure, they probably will within the next 6 to 9 months, and the houses will come real soon after that.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are speaking with Ben Vandermeer of the Sacramento Business Journal, journalist covering everything under construction, commercial, and residential here in and around Sacramento. And you can subscribe to Ben's column, receive all of the, and I say columns, plurals, just everything that he writes. You can subscribe to receive all of this information if you go to bizjournals.com/Sacramento, www, for those of you who need that, bizjournals.com, bizjournals.com backslash
yeah,
Sacramento. I don't know why I just had a brain freeze right there. Like I think I was thinking of a ride or something, water. Anyway, so if you Google Business Journal Sacramento, it will come up. If you Google Biz Journals Sacramento, and I'm telling you guys these little tips and tricks, in the event you're not somewhere where you can write this down, just type that into the Google search. And I'm telling you this information on how to reach Ben, how to get this information, because we are often seeing things pop up and we think it's out of nowhere. But Ben is writing about these things before you see them. He's writing and telling you who has applied for what. He's writing and he's telling us this is getting ready to happen over here. There's talk about this over here. This is the phase that this project is at. We're going to try to get as much out of Ben as possible today within the time that we have him. And Ben, thank you again for being here. How can people reach you if they have a lead for you, if they want to know more? How can they reach you?
Sure. Well, if you want to drop me a line, my email address being posted there at the bottom of the screen is my first initial B, then my last name, V as in Victor, A, N as in Nancy, D as in dog, ER, M as in Mary, EER at biz, B-I-Z, journals, plural.com. Go ahead and drop me a line. Let me know if there's something you're curious about and you haven't seen us write about it, but you think it's interesting, and I can see if it's something for us. On that same token, if you know something and you think, Ben might want to know this, don't hesitate. Drop me a line. I'd love to check it out. You'd be surprised how often you'll hear something that the person didn't think was a big deal, and you discover it really was a big deal.
Right. And if you're tuning into the show today, whether you're watching online or if you're listening by radio, feel free to either call into the station or drop us a line in the chats in the comment section and ask Ben a question. If you're driving by and you see a field and it looks like something's coming, Ben may know what's going on. If you saw a field that had 10 feet high weeds and all of a sudden they're gone, something might be getting ready to happen. So yeah. So, I do have a question for you in that regard, but we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to have more of Ben. We're going to find out more about Sacramento booming. That is the name of today's show. Sacramento's still booming, ladies and gentlemen. In the midst of COVID, change is still coming. You're listening to 97.5 FM KDEE. I am Agent Key, and we'll be right back. So I saw there's this field over in my neighborhood. It's off of Power Inn Road. It's in Elk Grove, Power Inn and Sheldon.
Okay.
And it's been a field forever. Across the street, there was a strawberry field. And one year they got rid of the strawberry field and they put in a senior residential facility. And it's really beautiful. But now the field across from there has been completely chopped down, leveled, I should say, and there is a sign that says commercial space coming soon. I read at one time a couple of years ago in the neighborhood thing that a Walmart was going there, but I think it was supposed to be a Walmart grocery store. Do you have any idea what that might be?
It does sound familiar. I'd have to take a look. If you give me a second here, I can real quick do a little checking and see if I can.
I know that there is a Walmart grocery store in the same parking lot as Walmart off of Elk Grove Boulevard at the corner of 99. And at this same corner of Power Inn and Sheldon, they had previously built, maybe 2-3 years now, an AM/PM grocery store, things like that. Not grocery store, AM/PM mini mart, a gas station, and McDonald's. Now, just last year, they finished another gas station right across the street. So a lot of that space that was empty is now starting to
fill in.
Yeah.
Let's see what I can find here.
Hey, you guys, if you're watching, drop us a comment in the chat and let us know you're there. I can see people tuning in, but we don't know you're there unless you say you're there. Let us know you're there. Oh, I forgot to give the station number, 916-213. No. 921-5333. That's what I forgot to bring in front of me.
You want to take a call now?
Oh, you have a call right now? It sounds like we're almost coming from break.
Still got 1 minute. You can hear that.
I can hear it?
Yeah.
97.5?
It's not loud. You can hear it though.
Yeah, I was just to your program,
Yes.
and you had someone about Sacramento booming.
Yes.
Yeah, and what I wanted to know, I'm in the call, so I'm listening to the program, and he was talking about Vacaville and
Not Vacaville. We're talking only about Sacramento.
Okay, now let's get back to that. Okay, now
I need you to be as fast as possible because we're getting ready to go back on the air. I can't hear.
A casino, the one you were talking about.
The one in Elk Grove?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I hear that right.
Can I ask you to hold for a minute? We're getting ready to go back on the air. Hold 1 minute.
Just hold on where you are. And then-
Will I still be able to hear with these
No,
on?
you need to-
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not gonna punch your line until you get ready.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. She's live.
Okay. We are back. You're listening to 97.5 FM KDEE. While we were on break, I took a call. So caller, are you still there? Okay. Can you turn her up a little bit? Okay. And your question was about the casino? And what is your question? Yes. What is your question? No. It's in Sacramento, in Elk Grove. Okay. No, the show is about Sacramento. The show is about Sacramento. Thank you for your call. Okay. Bye-bye. Okay. We have on the show today Ben Vandermeer from the Sacramento Business Journal, and we are talking about construction in Sacramento, ladies and gentlemen, in and around Sacramento. And before we went on break, I asked Ben a question about something that was going on in my neighborhood. He was going to take a look to see if he could find that. Did you find any information, Ben?
Not right away. If you gave me some time, let me check one other place here. Might be able to find something because it does ring a bell. That does sound like something.
Well, I'll let you be detective sleuth on that, and then you can get back to me. It's not a huge thing. Of course, I'm just interested. But with that being said, we want you to be able to call in if you are interested in knowing what's going on in Sacramento. You can give us a call here at the station, or if you are watching on YouTube or Facebook Live, you can drop your question in the chat for Ben. Ben, downtown Sacramento, one of the biggest issues right now for probably every city in the entire nation is housing. Mm-hmm. What are some of the big, we'll start on the rental side or apartment side first. What are some of the big projects that are coming up that we can look forward to for housing, residential housing?
Rental housing wise, there's a handful that are under construction that you'll probably see open up, I would think, in the next year and a half. One of them is on J and I believe it's 11th Street, and that's called Anthem Cathedral Square. That's, I think, about a 6 or 7 story project with, I want to say 100 or so rental units. You have another one at 17th and K Streets. That's more kind of the Midtown direction. That one's called 17th Central. That one I want to say is about 100 units, and that one is the furthest along. I think they've topped out on that, and they're looking at probably opening that up, if I would think, about 9 to 10 months or so. Mm-hmm. And then one that you'll probably start to see work on in the next 6 months or so is a new project that I just wrote about within the last few weeks. That's actually what's called the River District. If you're ever in Midtown Sacramento and you take 160 kind of headed out toward where Arden Fair Mall is, you'd be passing through the River District. And in an area there's kind of some old brick buildings. A group has come in, they bought a few properties there, and they want to develop, I want to say, about 500 housing rental units on some of the existing properties there. In some cases, they're going to be using the buildings that are there. In some cases, they're going to be tearing them down and starting over. But they're also going to take some of the brick buildings and create kind of a public market concept, art galleries, distilleries, food and beverage, all kinds of interesting ideas in these cool old brick buildings that are probably about a century old. That's called the Growers District. You'll see work on that part probably in next spring because the group behind it wants to move ahead pretty quickly.
Wow. So is that close to or near the rail yards?
That's just a little bit east of the rail yards. Okay. It's probably about a mile to the east. You mentioned the rail yards. There's actually a residential project underway there. If you're on I-5 and you happen to glance the direction of the rail yards, you can kind of see it under construction now. It's coming out of the ground. That one's called the AJ, and that one's got about 300 units. It's a pretty substantial project.
Oh, wow. Now, is that so that's a part of the project where it's also wrapped around the Kaiser Hospital is coming in that area. What other things are happening with that outside of residential?
There's also they're going to be taking one of the old buildings that's existing there now. It used to be a shops building, and they're actually going to be turning it into a live music venue. Basically kind of turning it around inside, it'll still be the same building, but they'll of course completely enhance the interior and have it for live events, concerts, maybe stand-up comedy, things like that. They've got those plans. I think the plan for that is called the Paint Shop, because that's what it was. It was a paint shop for locomotives back in the day, and those plans are with the city to do that.
Wow. So that's going to be a nice flow with that connected with the River Project. What did you say that area is called? The River
District, which is kind of to the east, and then the rail yards is to the west, kind of taking you all the way really to the river itself.
So then would the West Sac project be south of that? Because I know near the, what is it called? The Drake's Barn?
Right.
That area, there's a lot of residential construction happening there, has happened there. It's taking shape really nicely. And so it seems like it's all tying in.
Yeah, that's, of course, it's a different city, but yeah, West Sac has really, if anything, been ahead of Sacramento in the last 10 years or so for really taking advantage of the fact that they're right on the doorstep of a river. And you've got obviously already the ballpark there. Now you've got, as you said, Drake's at the barn down to the south, which has come out to be really like a kind of a nice amenity. A lot of people like to spend some evenings out there. There's another project called West that's under construction now. That's right by Tower Bridge, and that's got a couple hundred housing units, also supposed to have some retail space, and that's underway, probably going to be also opening up in the next, I would guess, 12 to 18 months.
This is pretty exciting. It makes you kind of want to stay in Sacramento to see what happens.
It keeps me busy.
Yeah. So we have a couple of questions in the chat. Will more projects like Mirasol Village come to downtown?
If you're talking from the sense of Mirasol Village is the one that's actually not far from the Growers District project that I was talking about. That is actually now starting to lease up. They've made enough progress on that. The project that you're mentioning, Mirasol Village, is mixed income. So it's got some for folks that's a little more affordable and then some that's more market rate. So it'll be a mix of folks living there. Kind of an interesting, and I think it'll be 400 housing units. So it's pretty substantial. I don't know of anything on that scale that's being planned in downtown. It's kind of hard to find that much land to do something, but you do have more both affordable and market rate projects on existing properties that are coming in. Anything on that scale, I'm not sure that there's anything like that in the works that I know of.
But it does sound like you're seeing some affordable housing being mixed in with the projects, maybe not as large, but there are some coming.
Yeah, there's kind of more of a thought these days that if you mix in people making market rate incomes with people who, aren't making as much and they would be more for affordable housing, it kind of blends in the neighborhood a little bit better.
Right.
I think we can all probably think of projects we've been by that you go, oh, that's affordable housing. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it does tend to kind of lend itself to a stigma. And the thinking these days is maybe if we kind of make it more of a blend of things, it doesn't have a stigma. It's just, like a neighborhood.
Right, exactly. I know there is I call them pull-apart townhomes. They're at the corner of Sheldon and Elk Grove, Florin. And when the builder built those, they also agreed to make some of them affordable. And so what I like to clarify with people is that affordable housing doesn't have to look like it's affordable housing. You would never know that many of those pull-apart townhomes, a percentage of them are income-based. And so that means that they had to sell them to people who were making a certain amount of income. And when that person gets ready to sell the home, they too have to sell it to someone who makes a certain amount of income in accordance with the county's guidelines. In addition, they do an equity share with the city of Elk Grove. So when they sell the home, they because the city of Elk Grove helps them with down payment assistance, closing cost assistance, when they sell the home, then Elk Grove gets part of that also. I had a seller, I helped a couple of individuals buy in there and then sell. And my seller was able to get in there in an affordable income-based home when she purchased it. And when she sold it, she had a nice amount of equity, and she was able to buy up into a much larger home by herself without the county sharing any of her equity. But that is how that situation is supposed to help people. And,
And I suspect when you mentioned that some of that equity gets shared with the city, more than likely the city then turns around, takes that equity and puts it into a fund develop more of that kind of housing.
That's right. They definitely do that. And so if you're interested in something like that, if you're listening on the radio or if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, contact the city of Elk Grove and ask them about that program and see when they'll have those funds available again to do that, or which projects around the city of Elk Grove have that ability when they sell those homes. So there's another question. Arden Way has a project for low-income housing down the street from Arden Mall. From what's being said, I guess more housing is being built in 95815 and 95825. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, there's actually a pretty sizable project being built down that way on Arden Fair. I live in South Natomas, so if I'm going over toward Arden Fair Mall, I actually pass through that direction. The one that's being built now is, I want to say, about 150 units, and it's made quite a bit of progress. It's right by a light rail station, so the thinking is that they wouldn't need to designate some of the land for parking because people would have access to transit. But I also know that there is a project that's in the very early stages but it's a little further west. There's the old armory, that building that's kind of up against the Woodlake neighborhood, and the plan is to actually develop more affordable housing there. In answer to your question, as best as I know, all of these are rental projects, not ownership. That just tends to be how they're structured. There hasn't really been, if I can think of any kind of that kind of dense style, almost condo style ownership housing that we've developed here on an affordable level. We don't really develop very many condos, period, in this area. So more than likely you're going to see these as rental.
And the condo development just doesn't lend itself financially to the builders, which is why they don't do it as much here. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's tricky in a couple ways. The market for condos tends to be a lot more fluctuating than it does for single family homes. And then on top of that, with the law, a condo with a construction defect, it's much easier to sue over that than it is if you just have a single family home. So a lot of builders will build something to a condo standard, but actually rent it out as apartments until a certain period passes. I believe it's 10 years, and then we'll turn around and sell it as condos. That's at least what they plan to do. A lot of times I've noticed they'll just keep renting them out, because why sell it if you can keep getting the money from them in perpetuity?
Especially in a market like this, when rentals and the amount of rent is just going through the roof.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. We're even seeing a lot of builders get into the market of building properties for rent, building single family homes for rent.
That's right. We're seeing that in a couple different places. I know a group called Curve Development out of Arizona has plans for whole neighborhoods like that in Roseville, and I believe also in the Vineyard area, kind of in South Sac, Elk Grove. They've got an option on land to build there. I also know there's a project in Natomas that's actually just starting now. You can see it just northeast of where 5 and 80 meet, and that too is going to be all housing strictly for rent.
Wow.
Single family homes, but for rent. Apparently the belief is there's going to be people who don't want to rent an apartment, but they also, for whatever reason, don't want to buy a home. This will be kind of the in-between for them, and there's a market, they believe, for it.
Now, are they making the homes in a certain way to meet a certain standard or desire, or are these going to be the regular homes that they've always built? Are they making them smaller, more communal feeling?
I think typically they're a little smaller, but I think in most other ways they're being built as single family homes. They'll have most of the bells and whistles that we're come to expect with a single family home, in the same way that when they build new apartments these days, they're a lot nicer than anything I lived in when I was in college or when I was younger. You know, they build them to a high standard because they can usually rent them out. I suspect with the houses, it'll be the same way. They'll build them to a high standard because they think they can rent them out.
So let's talk now specifically about some of the areas around Sacramento where new home construction is starting to, dare I say, pick up. It's not really picking up, but we can anticipate that it's going to probably be here within the next 3 to 5 years. In the Natomas area, since we're in Natomas already, I believe there was a plan for at least 20 something, maybe 20,000 homes. Is that right? A little, what would be east of the airport?
There's a plan there for a project that's actually already starting, and you can see houses there, called North Lake. That's just really where 5 and 99 split, just before you get to the airport. That's right on that corner there. And I think that's got a few thousand homes in it. It's supposed to also have some apartments, and they've actually started on an affordable project for apartments for seniors there. So that project is well underway. Natomas itself, the part that's to the south, still has some communities that are being built. I mentioned the one that's at 80 and 5 that's already under construction. And then really there's a couple master plans, one called the Upper West Side Plan that's kind of between the river and basically what's the built part of Natomas now. They had some kind of interesting ideas there about a central canal that they would build along, as well as like a really big communal green space, kind of a community garden, but on a much bigger scale, that would be sort of the centerpieces of that project. They're going through entitlements right now with Sacramento County because that project is actually not in city limits.
Wow. And so we can expect that there will be a lot of residential construction happening in the Natomas. They've got a lot of land. They've always had a ton of land, very similar to Elk Grove. And it almost seems the direction that Elk Grove goes, Natomas kind of does the same thing.
The other way.
Yeah.
Yeah, Natomas has really been, over the last 15 years, the biggest growth area in Sacramento, with the pause that they had from about 2008 to about 2014 or so because of the concerns over levies.
Right.
They have addressed that, they believe, to the point now that it's okay to build there again. So you'll see that take off. Delta Shores will be the other one. And then most of what we're going to see the rest of the time built in this area, at least in the city of Sacramento, is going to be infill. If someone can find 5, 10, 20 acres that's not being used very well, they might very well take it and build on it, because there's still a demand for housing.
So I want to ask you about zoning, but before we do that, there's a question, and I think she's asking about Syntax. Did they ever start their building of the headquarters in North Natomas? So the building is there.
Yes.
Right? And they just are, I guess, on pause with moving people in?
They've started moving people in. Their parking lots are kind of full these days, so there's definitely people in there. And what you're also starting to see, which tells me that there are people there, is they're starting to move dirt for a couple small retail centers nearby. You wouldn't be doing that unless you think that people are going to have to hit it up for gas, coffee, lunch, that sort of thing. So that's definitely moving forward.
Now, what about the Arco Arena? What's the scoop on that? What's happening there? I called it Arco Arena, but
it hasn't been Arco in a long time. Yeah, you date yourself in Sacramento if you think of it as Arco.
Sorry. But y'all listening, y'all knew what I was talking about. So what's happening with that?
It's still kind of a little bit unclear, but we do know one piece of it that has come out in the last few months. North State, which is a it's a university that also has a healthcare component, wants to build a campus out there with a medical center and a teaching school.
Now, North State was going to do that originally in Elk Grove, right?
That's right. They had gotten pretty far through the process in Elk Grove. They were going to be doing it at a spot kind of off I-5 in the Laguna area, but they were getting a lot of pushback from the neighbors, and I think they looked and said, maybe we can go somewhere where we're not going to get this pushback, and maybe we can even get a little bit better deal for ourselves.
Now, Ben, I'm sorry. Let me pause you right there, because that's a learning lesson, ladies and gentlemen. What Ben just described to you. He said the neighbors pushed back. You know which neighbors he's referring to? The homeowners, the taxpayers. They said, not in my backyard. I don't know all of the details, but I did hear some of the issues. But enough of the neighbors stood up enough at the city council, enough times at the city council meetings, to where this group of people just finally said, forget it. And they went, and now they've looked somewhere else, and apparently they found somewhere else. Yeah,
they've got a spot at the old arena site that they want to turn into their teaching hospital and small campus. And, you would probably describe that as a win for Natomas. We'll probably, at least when they announce it, they said you'll probably see some stuff happening with it fairly soon. They haven't submitted anything formally to the city yet. So, it's okay to be a little skeptical about how soon it's going to move forward, because you still got a lot of hurdles to clear. But they were talking that they wanted to move fast enough that the arena there, that's still sitting there, and if you've been in Sacramento a long time, you probably went to one or two or a dozen events there, might actually get torn down sooner rather than later to make way for this new project.
Wow. And so the reason that I pointed out that it was a learning lesson was because home ownership matters. And that's one of the important benefits of home ownership, is being able to see that because you're paying taxes, because your home is in this particular area, you do have a voice. It's the same with voting. I digress, but I wanted to make sure I pointed that out. And Ben, with the arena possibly being torn down, and with this university taking shape there, and now with Syntax being there, what other big things do Natomas residents have to look forward to that are possibly happening out there?
Well, there's an aquatic center that is going to be in the park up off of Del Paso Road. That is actually probably in its last stages of construction, so maybe you won't get to be out there this year. If we're lucky, the hot weather is just about past us now. But definitely next year, I would think it'll be opening up, and that'll be an amenity not just for Natomas, but anyone in the region. I think you can probably still go in there. I'm seeing a question here about 24-hour fitnesses plans. The last I had heard, that was still in the works, but they haven't broken ground on it, and I haven't heard about it in a little while. So, stay tuned. It may be that they've changed up their plans. A lot of things that were being planned years ago kind of got put on hold as a result of COVID-19. A lot of companies looked and said, maybe that's not in our plans as much, or at least not in our plans right now. And with where we're at now, we're still not really past COVID-19, so there's still just a lot of uncertainty with projects that have been approved. They have every reason you would think to move forward, except they're not sure about the state of the economy in the future, what COVID-19 is going to do. So you're still in a waiting period to see if they're actually going to move forward.
Okay. Do we want to take a call? Okay, let's grab it. 97.5. Oh, we got a dial tone. Okay. So if you have a question that you'd like to ask Ben on air, let's see if I can remember the number. 921? 916-921-5333. 916, if you're listening on the radio, 916-921-5333. If you have a question for Ben about Sacramento and you'd like to know what's going on, give us a call here. If you're watching and you want to drop him a question here in the chat, then we will go ahead and ask Ben that question. Let's take a call. 97.5. Hello, Teresa. So are you referring to the program that I mentioned earlier regarding the shared equity? What you want to do is contact the city of Elk Grove, and let me see if I can find, I want to say her name is Sarah. Let's see. Byrne. Do you remember Sarah's name offhand, Ben? The gal down at...
Yeah, I'm not offhand, but I know who you're talking about.
Tracker. Actually, why don't you do this? I think you could just simply, yes, why don't you do this? Send me, do you have something to write with? Do you have something to write with? You're driving. Remember, see if you can remember this. My name, Agent Key, AGENTKEE. If you remember that, AGENT, Agent ENT, yes, KEE.com. That's my website. Agent AGENT. It's a website. Go to my website. Yes. And then just contact me through the website. Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye. I really don't want to make it hard for anybody. I'm sorry, y'all. Yeah, but if we are talking about anything right now and you're not able to write it down, then contact me on my website at agentkey.com. We're going to take another call. 97.5. I can barely hear the caller. LaShawn? Okay. Are you in Sacramento or Elk Grove? So we have a couple of callers now that are looking for affordable housing. I can put together a list of what I know exists and send it to you. Do you have something to write down with? I'm just going to give you the information that I just gave the previous caller. If you go to my website and send me a message, and ask for affordable housing list or alternatives. I'll put something together for everyone and I'll send it out to you. Agent Key, KEE.com. And you can message me directly from my website. It'll be income based. Yeah, that's usually what they're usually based on income. And I'll do my best. You're very welcome. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we need some resources. I'm happy to help. Exactly. Did you say your name is Teresa? Oh, LaShawn, that was the caller before. LaShawn, thank you so much for the call. Okay. Take care. Bye-bye. Okay. Oh my goodness, y'all. We got to take another break. Is that another call? Okay, we'll take one more call before the break. One more call. Okay. 97.5. Whoop, got a dial tone. Okay, that was it. All right. I'm checking to see if we have some more in the chat. Yes, we do have some questions. Are you interested in networking with other podcasters in there? Megan, if you don't quit spamming my chat right now, I don't know who you are. Don't do that, gal. With so much development coming, should young single adults under 30 get in where they fit in now? All this development makes me think that our desirability as a metro city will continue to grow and grow. What are your thoughts about that, Ben?
I suspect that that's probably true. One thing that we really have seen in since COVID came in is a lot of people from the Bay Area coming out this way saying, hey, my money goes a little farther, and hey, this is actually a city. It's got stuff to do. It's got nightlife. There's outdoor stuff. It's affordable. I think there's quite a bit going on, and I think that that is going to enhance our attractiveness. And it all builds on itself. You'll get people who come out this way and say, you know, maybe I want to start my own company, or maybe I want to open my own restaurant, or I want to start some other kind of business and actually add to the vitality here, not just engage and enjoy it. Right. And I think all those things are still very much going to be happening in the years ahead. Really, our biggest competitor in those things is places outside of California that are also fun places for younger people to kind of settle down in and find more affordable than the Bay Area is.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And we did have a question from Yusuf. He said, I have some money and want to become involved with these developments. How does one get started? Do you have any advice for him, Ben?
You know, I would think the thing is, take a look around. There's a lot of actually fairly young developers who have kind of things that they're interested in. Sometimes it's urban infill. Sometimes it's land development that turns into houses. What I would suggest doing is, and you know, I'll put in a plug for us, take a look at the Sacramento Business Journal and see some names that you say, you know, this sounds like this person does something interesting, and then reach out. Say, you know, I'd like to get into this. What can you tell me? Give me some tips and tricks of what to do. I know a developer in town called Paul Petrovich. He's developed like the Safeway Midtown, Crocker Village, some other projects. Someone had reached out to him saying, hey, I want to get interested in development. What can you give me some tips and tricks? And it was Uriah Faber. That was actually the one who was reaching out to him. And, you know, developers, they tend to like to see people up and coming that want to do the same thing as they do, as long as they're not out competing them.
Right.
So find some people that sound like they're doing the kind of thing you'd like to do, and reach out, see what they say.
Right. Paul Petrovich would be a great one because he's a stalwart and he is such a wise giant. He has a lot of knowledge, and he's at that point. He's got give back just flowing through his veins. So he would be a great one. And before we go to break, Megan says, no spam. Love what you're doing. Great show. Okay, Megan, we forgive you. We forgive you. We're going to take a break, ladies and gentlemen. But when we come back, Yusuf said, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
When we come back, we're going to hear some last thoughts from Ben, and the hour is just flying by as it always does. You're listening to 97.5 FM KDEE. I'm Agent Key, and we'll be right back. Wow. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
I mean, we're kind of touching. I don't even think we're talking about what you talked about at the
No,
start.
we can scratch the surface. And the funny thing is, 2 weeks from now, we could do this show, and I literally might be talking about different stuff again, because there's stuff that from when I presented to the group in Curtis Park a few weeks ago that's new since then. That's nature of the beast.
So what you're saying is that we need to have you back at least once every couple months.
I don't know if I can commit to that, but I would always have something to talk about.
I will reach out. You don't have to commit. I'll reach out. And if you're available, I know that you will. You have a very big heart. Thank you, Ben. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
That. So let me see if I missed any comments in here. I want to make sure I didn't slight anybody. I think I got them all. No spam. Thank you. Okay. All right. Hey, you guys, if you are watching, if you're tuning in, let us know that you're there. Just say hi to Ben. Thank him for coming on the show today. If you watch the show on a regular basis, drop a line and say hi to Ben and thank him for being here, because we want to ask him back. Y'all hear me say I want to ask him back? So tell Ben thank you. He is going to be our inside scoop to all things being constructed in Sacramento.
And if you really want to thank me, we'd love it if you decided to subscribe to the Business Journal. Then you could get all this information. And, then you don't even have to look at me. Well, you still got to look at me because my face is in there. But at least you'd get it in a way where you're at. You can get it as an e-newsletter. You can get it as a printed edition. There's a few different ways, and I think it's pretty affordable.
There you go. There you go. So if you want to subscribe, there is the link right there across the screen, bizjournals.com/Sacramento. I said backsplash the first time, right? Backslash. That's crazy. Right? So we did get some folks saying thank you. Let me get rid of the banner here. Greetings. First time watching live. I love the information provided. You are very welcome. Is it DW? DW Edo. You're very welcome. Yes, thank you for being on, Ben. I read the Sac Biz Journal regularly and appreciate you being on. Awesome. Angela, I'm finally in my car to listen. Hey, Angie, glad you were able to take that break and jump in the car. She has the e version. Yes, I do too. It's a great subscription to have, especially when they drop you the headlines. If you don't have time to read everything, at least you can read the headlines really quickly when they fall in your email and just click on, and there's almost like enough information in the headlines and the subtitles so you can get an idea. And then I always go back to unread so I can go back and read them again. Because if I click on them and don't unread them, then I lose them. They're gone forever.
And I might as well point out, too, there's what I write about, but I've got colleagues who are writing about other stuff that's really important, too. I've got a colleague who writes about retail and restaurants.
We're back, everyone. You're listening to 97.5 FM KDEE. I am Agent Key. The phone is ringing. Ben just had a comment. Ben, say what you were just saying.
Just saying, the Business Journal is more writing about. I've got colleagues who are covering things like healthcare, tech, retail, restaurants, tourism. If you're wondering, for example, how the fires that we're having, unfortunately, now in El Dorado County, how are they going to affect things like Apple Hill and the wine harvest? We're going to be covering that stuff. We're covering that stuff now. It's going to be, how is that going to affect ski resorts that might have fire damage? Those are the kind of things we're really focused in on, and that's what you get when you subscribe with us.
That is huge, because those are some of the highlights of and the benefits of living in Sacramento. We're just 2 hours away from all of those things, with the ski resorts being one in the Tahoe area, and that they're just kind of engulfed in a lot of damage right now. And Apple Hill is a Sacramento favorite. All of these areas, the foothills, they're all being affected. And we definitely want to stay prayerful for them. But we also want to keep our ear close to the ground to see not only what's going on, but how we can help, what things we might be able to do, how long it's going to go on. And then, especially when it comes to the rebuilding efforts. So subscribing to the Sacramento Business Journal is one of those ways to do that. And you can subscribe at bizjournals.com/Sacramento, bizjournals.com/Sacramento. And Ben, how do we reach out to you if we want to send you a lead, if we want to ask what's going on, Ben? How do we reach out to you?
Sure. Send me an email. My email address there on the screen. It's B, my first initial, Vandermeer, V as in Victor, A, N as in Nancy, D as in dog, ER, M as in Mary, EER, at bizjournalsplural.com. Apologies for it's a little long and complicated. Blame my Dutch ancestors for having a little bit of a long and complicated name.
It's okay. It's okay. And so, ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to 97.5 FM KDEE. We want to thank Ben for his time here. He is very busy. These articles come out on a daily basis, if not an every other hour basis. Ben is also on Twitter. So if you are on Twitter, if you're tweeting, and you can see every article he posts right there, headlines on his Twitter page, Ben Vandermeer on Twitter. Gosh, he's also on LinkedIn, but I don't know if he's doing anything on there, but he's there.
Put a story up every day.
Oh, well, there you go. See, I'm not a LinkedIn person. I go and check in every now and then, but I do check and see when my guests, if they have profiles on LinkedIn, and Ben does. So, Ben, we're going to have you back. You can't commit to every other month, but y'all might hear from Ben every other month anyway, because I'm going to reach out to him. Thank you again, Ben. Is there any last things that you want to leave our listeners with before we take off? Any projects that are going on that you want to bring to our attention?
You know, I don't know that there's anything that specifically comes to mind, but I would just say it's a real dynamic, interesting time in real estate right now. We've obviously got a housing shortage that we're still trying to solve in so many different ways. And it's really interesting to see the different things people are coming up with. And I think it's fast moving and there's a lot happening. It's a lot for me to keep up with. So it's okay to if it sometimes feels like it's a lot to keep up with for you too. I'll just say we do our best at the Business Journal to keep you up on it.
Yeah, I love that. I love leaving out with that, because as a real estate professional, I can only stay on top of so much. And it takes people like Ben who come in and support our efforts with all of the details of what it is that we're doing, and to keep us tracking and keep us on point. Thank you again, Ben, so much. Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening. You've been listening to 97.5 FM KDEE. I am Agent Key. And remember, if you are doing what you were created to do, I will see you at the top. Thank you. It was. I hope I got everyone's comments. Oh, she says, I was born and raised here in Sacramento, and I agree. The Sac Business Journal keeps me up to date on everything. Plus, I love their yearly Women Who Mean Business showcases. I do too. I always watch that to see who's up and coming and who's doing what. Ben, thank you again, sir. We appreciate you.
Thank you. And it sounds like you're going to drag me kicking and screaming to come back sometime. So
I'll be nice about it. It will be painless. Take care, Ben.
Have a good afternoon.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.